Muy buenas tardes, siendo las 18:33 horas. Les saluda el profesor Cristian Cristóbal, coordinador de lengua inglesa del Instituto Superior de Lenguas, en calidad de moderador de esta defensa de tesis. Se da inicio a la defensa virtual de tesina acorde a la resolución número 1338/2023, que fija fecha y hora de la tesina con el título Translation of the Dialogue of the Movie Libertad from Spanish to English to Facilitate Access to English Speakers, a cargo de los autores Diana Soledad Velázquez Riveros y Anicio Antonio Arias Ramírez, de la carrera de Lengua Inglesa del Instituto Superior de Lenguas de la Facultad de Filosofía de la Universidad Nacional de Asunción, Paraguay. El día de hoy, viernes 3 de noviembre del 2023. En calidad de presidente del Tribunal Examinador, nos acompaña el día de hoy la profesora Sharon Weaver. Muy buenas tardes, profesora.
Buenas tardes, profesor.
En calidad de miembros del Tribunal Examinador, las profesoras Romina Bento y Elena Núñez. Buenas tardes, profesoras.
Buenas tardes, Mr. Cristóbal. Buenas tardes, Diana. Buenas tardes, Anicio.
Muy buenas tardes a todos.
Postulantes universitarios, muy buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Buenas tardes a todos, profesores.
Profesora Sharon Weaver, queda usted ahora en el manejo del desarrollo de la defensa.
Gracias, profesor. Well, thank you very much, my dear. We have 30 minutes to hear the presentation of Diana and Anicio regarding the translation of the movie Libertad. So I understand that Diana will be presenting, and you may start, dear.
Okay, on it. Okay.
Yes, you may begin.
Okay. Good afternoon, professors. We are Anicio Arias and Diana Velazquez, and we'll be presenting our topic, which is translation of the dialogue of the movie Libertad from Spanish to English to facilitate access to English speakers. In Spanish, it would be la traducción del diálogo de la película Libertad del español al inglés para facilitar el acceso a los angloparlantes.
Okay, so I will be starting with the statement of the problem. The translation of the movie Libertad will allow English speakers to have access to watch it and thus learn about an event which made Paraguay an independent country. Therefore, it is highly important to be as accurate as possible in order not to have a meaning loss or misinterpretation. Translators also need to be well familiar with methods, techniques, and tools. Then we have the research purpose. The main purpose of this project is to translate the dialogue of the movie as accurately as possible, to make it available for English speakers by using the most suitable method and some translation techniques in order for the target audience, English speakers, to watch the movie and be aware of the story of the independence of Paraguay and learn from it.
Then we have the research questions. How can the history of Paraguay be depicted to English speakers through translation? What are the most accurate tools available to translate? What is the more suitable method for the dialogue contained in the movie Libertad? What are the different translation techniques available to translate from Spanish to English? Then we have the research objectives: to use the most accurate tools available to translate the movie, to describe the translation method and techniques used in translating cultural terms found in the movie Libertad, to consult books and websites in order to identify the most suitable translation techniques.
Research design. The research is qualitative since the outcome is high-quality translation. The tools used for such research are machine translation programs, books, and websites on how to translate and the knowledge the translator have about both languages. The procedures followed were to gather some information about a variety of tools, unlike dictionaries, and after that, it was decided which method, techniques, and tools were used to translate such dialogues. Then we have limitation and ethical concern. The lack of great deal of information on how to translate the dialogue of a movie that has an historical theme is a significant limitation. The translation of movies is not very common in Paraguay, since movies made in the country are targeted at Paraguayans and other Spanish speakers. Foreign movies are usually translated in Mexico and Argentina. Therefore, audiovisual translation is not much developed here. There were not enough materials found to be certain about the way people spoke in the colonial Paraguay. The authors of this work noticed that the way the characters spoke in the movie could not accurately reflect the vocabulary used in that time, since it is rather similar to the 21st century Paraguayan Spanish.
After that, we have the literature review. We have the historical background. The movie Libertad, which is a Paraguayan movie, is based on a historic event that changed the history of Paraguay. It is based on the events of the year 1811 that led to independence of Paraguay from the Spanish crown. It is a Paraguayan historical drama film directed by Gustavo Delgado, released on May 11, 2012 in theaters in Paraguay. The story is told from the perspective of some of its key figures, such as Pedro Juan Caballero, Vicente Turbe, Fulgencio Yegro, and many other historical figures. Then we have the definition of translation. Translation is the process of rendering the meaning of ideas or messages of a text from one language to another. It's a mental activity that involves translating the meaning of a given linguistic discourse from one language to another. It is the act of converting linguistic entities from one language to their equivalent in another. For this work, the source language is Spanish and the target language is English. Translation transfers messages from a source language to a target language. Translation is a process in which the translator makes a number of decisions on how to interpret the source text, uses resources, and applies technical skills, and re-expresses the messages in the target text. And our movie is based on a mix of European Spanish and Paraguayan Spanish. In order to accomplish a good translation, the translator must respect the language used in the movie so the translation can be accurate. And the product of translation can be identified through the techniques used by the translator in transferring the meaning in the target text. The techniques used in the translation product can determine how the target text can be successfully translated. So, for example, for the expression con toda el alma, it is in Spanish. So if it is translated into English using a technique, the literal translation, it will be with all my soul. But the correct technique to be used should be the established equivalent, with all of my heart. So that would be more understandable for a native speaker of the English language. So that's why the technique that you use for the translation can have an impact on the product, on the result of the translation.
Then we have dubbing and subtitling. According to the Colon Dictionary, dubbing is the replacement of a soundtrack in one language by one in another language. Whereas subtitling is the addition of subtitles to a film or a program, it is important to mention that this work will be a contribution for anybody interested in adding subtitles to the movie Libertad, with the translated dialogue that the translators have done. This work can also be used in case anyone wishes to dub such movie with the translated dialogue. Translation method used was communicative. Communicative translation attempts to render the exact contextual meaning of the original in such a way that both content and language are readily acceptable and comprehensible to the readership. Communicative translation aims at reducing the exact message of the source text and content, but it emphasizes on naturalness and acceptability, comprehensiveness of the reader from the target language. Communicative translation concentrates on the message and the main force of the text, tends to be simple, clear, and brief, and is always written in a natural and resourceful style. These were the translations that were found in the books that the authors consulted. It is important to mention that not all of these techniques were used, but however, I will be sharing the definition of each of them in order to have context. First, we have adaptation, which is replacing a source text cultural element with one from the target culture. Then we have amplification, is introducing details that are not formulated in the source text. Borrowing is taking a word or expression straight from another language. Calque is literally translation of a foreign word or phrase. It can be lexical or structural, incorporated in another language. And we have compensation, which is introducing a source text element of information of stylistic effect in another place in the target text, because it cannot be reflected in the same place as in the source text. Then we have description, which is replacing a term or expression with a description of a form or a object. Then we have discourse or creative, which is establishing a temporary equivalence that is totally unpredictable in other contexts. Established equivalent is using a term or expression recognized by dictionaries or language in use, and as an equivalent in the target language. Linguistic amplification is adding more linguistic elements. This is often used in consecutive interpreting and dubbing. Next, linguistic compression, which is synthesizing linguistic elements in the target text. This is often used in simultaneous interpreting and subtitling. Literal translation, as the title mentions, is literal translating. Is translating a word or an expression word by word. Modulation is changing the point of view, focus, or cognitive category in relation to the source text. It can be lexical or structural. And we have reduction, which is suppressing a source text information item in the target text. Substitution is changing linguistic elements for paralinguistic elements, for example, intonation, gestures, or vice versa. Transposition is changing a grammatical category. Last, we have variation, which is changing linguistic or paralinguistic elements. Intonation, gestures, that effects of linguistic variation. Changes of contextual tone, style, social dialect, geographical dialect.
Then we have the translation tools. We have human translation and machine translation. The process of translating that is done by human is referred to as human translation. The original content will be translated into a version that captures the essence and meaning of the original using the appropriate tone and style for the intended audience. Machine translation is a translation of text done by a computer without the assistance of a person. Machine translation relies on an extensive number of integrated linguistic rules as well as millions of bilingual dictionaries for each language combination, including morphological, syntactic, and semantic dictionaries. They simply collect data over time in order to deliver the best translation in a target language statistically. Google Translate and Bake Translator are two of the most well-known machine translation engines. It is important to mention that such tools were only consulted to ensure accuracy. Most of the work was done by the authors, the translator. As we were translating the dialogue, we noticed that it was very hard for the machine translation to translate expression and jokes. After that, we have the translation which was conducted. 40 examples were presented, described by the translator of this work. The technique used is mentioned as well as an explanation on each example. First, we have linguistic amplification, which is adding linguistic elements. This is often used in consecutive interpreting and dubbing. So we have the source language, which is Spanish, and the target language, which is English. In Spanish, it is ¿para qué tanta plata? In English, it is why do you want so much money? It is linguistic amplification because, as you can see, the auxiliary verb do was added and the adverb so in order to express the same meaning as in the source language. The description provided was more linguistic elements were added in order to make it more understandable in the target language. The technique used was linguistic amplification. And after that, we have established equivalent, which is using a term or expression recognized by dictionary or language in use as an equivalent in the target language. So for the source language, we have Recuerdan la Revolución Comunera. In the target language, we have Do you all remember the revolt of the comuneros? In order to find the equivalent, in the English language, some books and some websites were consulted in order to know about the equivalent that was used in the English language. In the case of the Revolt of the Comuneros, books were consulted in order to determine the name of such historical event since it was not possible to translate it literally. After that, we have amplification, which is introducing details that are not formulated in the source language, information, implicative paraphrasing. So we have the source language, casi te maté mitai, and the target language, I almost killed you mitai. It is amplification because it was added between parentheses the translation of the Guarani word mitai. And it was decided to keep the word in order to show the way the Guarani language is used along with the Spanish language. The description provided was the translation decided to keep the Guarani word mitai in order for the English speakers to understand more about the two languages Paraguayans use. The meaning of the word was added between parentheses.
And we have transposition, which is changing a grammatical category. For this example, in the source language, it says, así lo espero, tenemos que evitar que la gente ataque a los españoles si sale bien. Y si sale mal, lo ideal sería que la sangre que se derrame no sea la nuestra. So the translation conducted was, I hope so. If it goes well, we have to prevent the people from attacking the Spaniards. And if it goes wrong, may the blood spill not be ours. The technique used was transposition. Transposition technique was used because the placement of the sentence was changed in the target language. In Spanish, the phrase si sale bien is used at the end of the sentence, where in English, the phrase if it goes well is used at the beginning of the sentence. As you can see in the example, the position was changed. Then we have literal translation, which is translating a word or an expression word by word. For this example, in the source language, we have los paraguayos me quieren al amanecer, esto se resolverá. For the translation is the Paraguayans like me, at dawn this will be solved. The technique used was literal translation, since the translators found the exact meaning of this phrase in the target language. This was translated word by word, word by word. Then we have borrowing, which is taking a word or an expression straight from another language. For this example, we have in the source language, los curuguateños estamos con la causa. The translation was, the curuguateños are with the cause. This technique was borrowing since the translator kept the word in Spanish, since the demonym cannot be translated since this word does not exist in the target language. Next, we have linguistic compression, which is synthesizing linguistic elements in the target language. This is often used in simultaneous interpreting and subtitling. For this, we have está bien, señores, esta noche a las 10. For the translation, okay, gentlemen, tonight at 10. In the source language, there are two words. When the translation was done, only one word was used to express the same meaning. As you can see in this example, está bien was translated by okay, and esta noche was translated with tonight.
After that, we have the data description for the examples that were extracted. We have first linguistic amplification. 11 examples were extracted, which accounts for the 27.5%. After that, we have established equivalent. 7 examples were extracted, which accounts for the 17.5%. After that, we have amplification. 6 examples were extracted, which accounted for the 15.0%. After that, we have transposition, 6, 15%, literal translation, 6, 15%, borrowing, 3, 7.5%, linguistic compression, 1, 2.5%. In total, 40 examples were extracted in order to show the variety of techniques used for this work. And it is important to mention that these examples were selected and extracted as we were translating the dialogue to show the variety of techniques used for this work. And after that, we have the graph, the percentage of use of a translation technique used in the 40 extracted examples. We have literal translation, linguistic compression, established equivalent, linguistic amplification, amplification, transposition, and borrowing. As you can see, linguistic amplification was the technique most common in the work done.
In conclusion, translation is a bridge that connects cultures since they can understand the same story, whether it be in a book or in a movie, thanks to this art. That is the purpose that a translator has, to render the same information, ideas into the target language from the source language. That was the main intention of the translators of this work, to allow English speakers to have access to a movie which depicts an historic event, the independence of Paraguay by translating the dialogue of it.
Books and reliable websites were consulted in order for the translator to have a deep understanding of the method and techniques more suitable for the genre of the movie. The communicative method was chosen and used after reading in depth about the different methods currently used in the field. A wide variety of techniques were used to ensure that the outcome is as accurate as possible. All the techniques available in the translation were presented in the literature review. It is worth mentioning that not all of them were used for this work.
The translators extracted some parts of the dialogue to conduct a description of the techniques used in order to demonstrate that it was done technically and professionally. The translators hope that this will be a great contribution for anybody interested in subtitling and dubbing this piece of work. This will be available on the university website and at the ISL library.
And we wanted to share with you a quote which says, "Words trouble words, translator do the driving" by Anna Rusconi. Thank you for your attention, and we are ready for your questions.
Thank you. Well, I have a question as a translator. I wanted to ask you, was it something that you arrived at after you had started to use machine translation, that you realized that you really had to translate the passages yourself? Or did you start first by translating and then compare with what machine translation would have been? Talk a little bit about the process that you used when you were arriving at the translation per se of the script.
So for the process, first we had to write the dialogue of the movie. We watched the movie. After that, we wrote everything down. After that, we were translating everything. It was not everything by us, but when we weren't sure about the technique to be used or about the translation or for that, for example, for a sentence, some websites and some machine translation tools were consulted in order to ensure accuracy when we weren't 100% sure about it. So, for example, for the translation of expression for idiomatic expressions, some books were consulted, or for the name of some historical events. In order to be sure that that was the term used in the English language, some historical books were consulted in order not to translate the name of the event literally.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Diana, did you work alone and then consult with Anicio, or did you work together as a team for most of the translation?
For most of the translation, we were like splitting our translation parts, and once we finished with the part of the translation, we couldn't done it. I mean, like all of it at a certain time. So we were like, let's do this from this, and then we'd meet this date. So we will do it by ourselves, and then when the meeting when the meeting came, we showed what we did, and we were like, this is good, this is bad, let's change this is not correct, let's consult this. I don't like this. So we will always work together. Even if we have to translate it separately, we have to have our point of view in order to be as accurately as possible.
Okay, thank you. Professor Romina, would you like to address the candidates with a question?
I have a very simple question. What was the hardest thing for you guys when you were working on this project? What was the biggest difficulty that you ran into?
When we had to write the dialogue of the movie, because we had to watch the entire movie and we had to write everything because we couldn't find the script of the movie. So we had to watch the movie that is 1 hour and a half. So we had to watch it together and we had to like wrote everything because we didn't have the script.
Yeah, especially when there were like some words or expressions that it was like mixed with another word, and we were like, "What does this say? Is it this? Is it this one? I don't think so. Let's watch it again. Let's listen to it again." So it was like back and forth on that.
because
Did
sometimes it was very hard to understand what they were saying.
Yeah,
So we had to watch it all over again, some
mhm.
yeah.
parts.
And does the movie contain any expressions in Guarani or Yopara, or is
And
it mainly Spanish?
it does. Sometimes they tend to use some Guarani words. For example, for the example that we show, mitain,
Mm,
they were also using some Guarani words.
It
okay.
was mostly Yopara, not a phrase in Guarani.
Mm, that's what I would have figured. Okay. Thank you so much, Miss
You're
Nunez.
welcome.
Hello, how are you? Well, you were doing your literature review, or even before starting your literature review, at that stage when you're thinking about your thesis project, and you're still doubting, shall we go this way or that way? While you were doing that, have you found any research done by other professionals in the field that, in a way, have shaped or influenced or inspired your work?
Um, it was hard for us to rely on a source or a work by someone, since I don't think anybody from this university at least done a translation of the movie or a movie. So it was really hard for us to find a path or a way, or to see if it was right or not. We were like consulted a lot of books, consulted a lot of websites, in order to not be all over the place, because we were like in a limbo for to say it like that. So I think we came up with a good project after all, and I'm really proud of us of what we done.
And we couldn't find uh, a thesis, and we couldn't find anything on the website because it wasn't done before like translating a movie and after that providing a description. So as we were thinking about the topic translation, we decided that it would be very interesting to try that, to watch a movie, to write the script, the dialogue, to translate it, and after that provide a description to show the way that the translation was conducted by the translator.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
There have been several, just a comment, there have been several theses that dealt with the analysis of techniques used in either dubbing or subtitling, but they were working on the basis of a translation that had already been done by another person. In this case, you did not find that script, and you had to uh, compile the language and come up with the script and then translate, and then choosing which of the many examples you would
Yeah.
to your framework. From this
Yes,
is what I understand.
Yeah,
that's correct.
that's correct.
Are there any other questions from our examining board? Comments?
No, I'm fine with the questions I made, Miss Weaver. I don't know about Miss Nunez.
No, no more questions. Thank you.
Well, I suggest that we. I don't know exactly how this works technically to have the students exit the meeting. Professor Christopher, I think, will do so, and then
Yes,
with the
they need to
WhatsApp
leave
group.
now.
Sorry.
They need to leave now, and we will let you know when to come back again.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, sure.
Both the
Thank you.
Annas, because there are two accounts from the Anna.
Yes, I will go. I will be out.
Thank you.
Okay, see you soon.
See you soon.
And me. See you soon.
I will stop the recording.
Well, good evening. Welcome back. We had some reservations, folks, from the very beginning. You know that. And I would have liked for you to have given your presentation without reading necessarily. I feel that your work improved, the written work improved from when we saw it a year ago. And that was reflected also to Professor Bento, who was new to the team, as Professor Ramirez left. So we we heard your pronunciation. We felt that Diana did a better job actually than Anicio in the spoken part of the presentation. However, we want to give a composite grade. You will have a composite grade, and we're very happy to tell you that you both passed your exam and that you both are going to receive your degree as a, how can I say, Bachelor's of Arts in the English language. So allow me to congratulate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Thank
Congratulations.
you, professors.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
professors.
So you will see the paperwork when you get back to Nildas. If you have family members who are there present and you'd like to show them to us, or if you want to say to your family or your friends, and that's your opportunity also, since you don't have a presidential class presentation or oral defense.
I think they are preparing the dinner now, so I don't think they
Yeah,
will be here now. They're like, it's done. Let's
Okay,
celebrate.
they're
We're
happy.
there. They're behind
but they are
doors.
very happy. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
Okay, very good.
Congratulations.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me show you my graduation hack.
Okay,
Okay,
let's
okay,
see.
let's see it.
Where's
Let's see
the
it.
graduation cup? Let's see.
Diana is
I had
ready.
one. I had one made for my master's program because
Right.
I'm not gonna have a graduation until next year, so I had one for the picture.
Ah,
Put it
great.
on.
Great.
There you go.
There you go.
Ah,
Ah,
Licenciada Diana.
Look at this.
What does it say?
On
On
to
to
the next
To the next
chapter.
chapter.
Yes,
Congrats.
On to the
lovely.
next chapter. Okay, very good.
There
there it is.
Excellent. Thank you. That's great. Should we
Oh my,
get a picture? Who can take another picture?
oh my God, let me
yeah,
take a
yeah,
picture.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to take a picture.
Okay, one,
Please.
2, 3. Very good. Let me put it in the
Okay.
group. There it
Please,
is.
all smile.
Don't cover your face, Diana.
I don't know. I'm right here.
Okay.
Oh my God. Thank you so
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much. And I want to thank also our colleagues, my fellow colleagues, for their consideration of this thesis, and to our moderator, Professor Christoffel. Good evening. Best wishes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, guys.
Right.
Thank you, professor.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Let me finish in Spanish.
Okay.
You have to officially close the session.
Yes.
Okay.
Con esto damos por terminada la defensa de tesis de Diana Velázquez y Anicio Arias. Les deseamos felicitaciones a los flamantes licenciados en lengua inglesa. Muchas
Ay,
felicidades.
muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Oh my God. I'm so excited.